What is up, you guys? I'm Dark Celtic, and this is a tutorial about Team Fortress 2. When you first load up Team Fortress 2, you have your play multiplayer, play co-op, servers, training, items, shop, replays, and workshop. If it's your very first time ever playing an FPS game or a game like TF2 or games in general, it's a good idea to start out in training and go to basic training. This will teach you 4 of the classes in a very interesting way for each one of them. Starting with the soldier, it'll teach you how to move and shoot and jump and crouch and all kinds of different things like that. Before you verse actual players, my suggestion is to try out offline practice and go here, because offline practice will put you against robots that you get to decide whether or not you want to, at what difficulty you want to do. There's 3 game modes in practice mode: control points, King of the Hill, and payload. In control points, you take control of a certain point for a long enough time so that you can go and take the next point, and then you take the next point, and you take the next point, while the enemy team will try to guard the points and keep you from taking them. If you don't take longer than 5 minutes to get a certain point, you lose the round. In King of the Hill, there's 1 point, and both teams struggle to take the point and hold it for as long as they can. The team that can hold the point for 5 minutes wins the match. And then there's payload. 1 team pushes a cart from 1 point to another point. If they can get the cart from point A to point B, they win. If red can stop them, red team wins, or blue team, according to who's, I think it's, whichever one's going on. Whoever's pushing cart versus whoever's doing such things. I suggest control point for all new players, because it's very easy to understand, it's very quick, and very fun to play. When you go into a training mode, you click it, and then you can pick what difficulty of bots you want, what map you want to play on, and how many bots you want to play against. I suggest 16 for all new players, and I suggest trying normal mode at least once. And if you can, try out expert mode, because expert mode is probably as close as you're going to get to typical fights with other players. Alright, now let's talk about a few things that is hard to understand about Team Fortress 2. This item button. In the items button, you can see each one of the 9 classes. You have a backpack, a crafting, a Manco catalog, and a trading system in this game. We'll get to those in just a second, but let's go over the classes that's in Team Fortress 2. The first one is the Scout. He's the champion. I'm talking League of Legends now. He's the speedy character in the game. His job is to run across the battlefield as fast as he can and try to capture points, take intel from one place to another, and be able to double jump and go across terrain very quickly. The downsides to this character is that he has very low HP. His gun, his scatter gun, has 6 shots, and they can fire pretty quickly, but they don't deal that much damage, and they have a high rate of spray, meaning only a few things hit people, and you won't be dealing much damage as the Scout. The Scout's best attribute is that he can get around behind the enemies and get surprise attacks on them. This character is typically hard for most new players to learn and do effectively because of the amount of running into battle that you're going to be doing with him. The next one is the Soldier. The Soldier uses a rocket launcher, which deals damage around in a radius when it blows up, as most rocket launchers do. He has 4 shots inside his gun, and reload is a little bit longer. Actually, it's a lot longer. He's slower than the Scout, much slower than the Scout. And he comes equipped with a shotgun and a shovel. Now, the difference between the shotgun and the scatter gun is that the scatter gun deals a little bit more damage than the normal shotgun. The pistol is a higher rate of fire than the shotgun, so it gives the Scout a little bit more that he can do. And the bat is his melee weapon. Every class has a melee weapon. So you have the rocket launcher, a little bit weaker than the Scout's shotgun, but he's a lot slower. He's at least half the speed of the Scout. So you've got to sacrifice speed for damage with this guy. He has pretty good health. Health is at 200, whereas the Scout has 125, I believe. Yes. But that's the Soldier. And now we're coming to the end of the offensive. We have the offensive group, which is these three: Scout, Soldier, and Pyro. Pyro carries a flamethrower, which deals damage over per second, and has a very medium fire rate, I would say. It's shorter range than most guns in the game, but it sprays out pretty good of a distance. Anyone caught in this radius takes damage as long as they're in the fire. When they leave the fire, they also take 3 damage per second for like 30 seconds or something like that. Or 10 seconds. Yeah, it's 10 seconds. He also comes equipped with a shotgun, which blasts farther than the flamethrower, but deals less damage than the flamethrower. And he comes equipped with his specialty fire axe. He is also resistant to fire damage, so whenever another pyro comes up and tries to burn him, he actually doesn't get dealt damage outside of the fire for afterburn effect. So he doesn't take that 3%, but he will take damage to the fire as he's in the blast radius of the fire. If you play Pyro, you'll understand what that means if it doesn't make sense. But Pyro is one of the more easier classes to play, and is one of my top 3 suggested for new players to try out first. Plus, he's really fun. Hudda 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 hud. Next is the defense group. These 3 characters are designed to be defensive, and I put quotations around that. I will get to those after a reply to my friend. One moment. Alright. So here's the defense group. First is the demo man, but I'm going to save him for after we talk about the engineer. So we're going to start out at the heavy. Okay. So the heavy is a really big character. He has a really big back, which we'll talk about in just a minute. He's really slow. He's the slowest out of everybody. He carries a giant minigun that has to rev up first, so it takes about 3 seconds before his bullets start to come out of his gun. He also is equipped with a shotgun and his fists for a melee weapon. The heavy's job is to protect the rest of the team from damage. He goes out, he takes his gun out and applies suppressive fire and lets his team pretty much win the game for him. He's the tank class, if you know what a tank class is from other games. He sprays out all these bullets, getting chip damage on everybody around him. If people are directly in front of him, they are going to die, because that minigun deals a lot of damage up close, but it sprays out so far at a distance that you'll get chip damage on people far away from you. If he runs out of ammo, which he has 200 ammo of, he can swap to a shotgun to finish people off. We'll get back to heavy in just a little bit. Next is the engineer. In my mind, the engineer is the most complicated out of everybody. The top 3 most complicated for new players to learn is engineer, spy, and scout. Engineer has a shotgun starting out, a pistol, so it makes him very useless in the offensive bracket here. But he has a wrench and a PDA. Now, the PDA allows the engineer to place a turret, a dispenser, and a teleporter entrance and a teleporter exit. The job of the engineer is to build things on the battlefield. He will be able to build a turret from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 using his wrench. So when he places a turret down, he can hit it with his wrench for metal. He starts out with 200 metal. It takes 200 metal to get a level up on one of your items. The turret is a small gun. Well, at first it's small, then it becomes a big one with 2 miniguns on the sides of it that throw out rockets and shoot bullets at people, but it's stationary. It stays in one spot. The engineer typically stays with his turret. The engineer is very, very rough to learn, especially when just talking about it. But I will have a video about each individual class in the next episode of this guide to TF2. Right now we're just talking about them. Yeah. So first of all, the engineer's job is pretty much lock down areas with his turret, provide a dispenser which gives health and ammunition to his teammates, and put down teleporters so that his team can teleport farther into the map. He is a very useful character in the game, but it is really hard for a new player to learn, the engineer. Now then, as I said, the engineer creates these turrets, creates dispensers and teleporters. The demo man's job is to destroy the engineer's stuff. He has a grenade launcher, a sticky bomb launcher, and a bottle. He uses the sticky bomb launcher to place bombs on walls and then detonate them whenever enemies go by them. He uses the grenade launcher to lob grenades against a wall and ricochet them into people or away or into them, or however you want to do the grenade launcher. But his job is to mainly lob grenades at engineers and heavies and high priority targets and blow them up so that they're not harming your team anymore. That's why he's considered defensive rather than offensive. Even though he does have some of the highest damage output in the game, he's more or less used as a defensive unit than anything else. Maybe not in the meta, but you get the idea. For new players, this would be pretty much a very defensive player. And that's the defensive group right there. Next is the support group. You have the medic, the sniper, and the spy. The medic, it's a pretty simple job. You use your medigun to blast out a whole bunch of health in front of you onto one teammate and heal him for whatever damage he's already taken. It's literally a fire hose that you can just spray health into people. His syringe gun, in my opinion, is probably the weakest gun in the game. It shoots at a very high rate of fire, but deals very little damage, and is very inaccurate. So you're very much not going to be much of a use as a battle medic, as people do with just the syringe gun. You need a different gun for battle medic, which we'll talk about items in the game in the next episode. The bone saw is his melee device and allows him to have a bit of a melee area. But the medigun's pretty much everything you're going to be doing with the medic, and that's just healing teammates. After a certain amount of time, I think it's about 30 seconds of healing someone, you get a uber, which is considered with the medigun, you get to give yourself and a teammate that you're healing invulnerability for like 8 seconds. So for 8 seconds, you and your teammate are invincible. You see a lot of times the medic healing heavies because heavies have all that damage power out in front of them. So what happens is the medic heals the heavy, who has a lot of health, keeping him alive, then ubers him in order to take over engineer nests, sniper nests, kill out scouts, pyros, and the other people, and take over points. The medic and heavy is probably the biggest and best combo in the game, next to engineer pyros, which we'll talk about in just a second after we get done with these two. Sniper. He's considered a support character because he really doesn't have very much close range attack power. In this game, sniper rifles and snipering is not like most other FPS games. In this game, you've literally got to be a sniper. You've got to take a position way back in the back of the field and try to take out high priority targets such as medics, soldiers, heavies if you're able to, and try to take out very important targets rather than running around quick-scoping and stuff like in some other games. He has an SMG, but it deals very little damage, and it's really used to kill spies, which we'll talk about in a minute. But his sniper rifle deals headshot damage, which is critical hit damage. A critical hit is considered 150% more damage than your normal hit, whereas a mini crit is 125%. 100% being the normal amount of damage you deal. Alright. Last is Spy. Spy's job is very awkward and is the second hardest, in my opinion, for new players to learn. His job is to infiltrate the enemy defenses. He can become invisible, he can impersonate an enemy, and he can backstab for one-hit kills. So what happens is you go invisible, you run behind enemy lines, you turn yourself to look like an enemy, and then you go around backstabbing your enemy with your knife. The revolver is a little bit stronger than the normal pistol, but it doesn't fire as fast. So it's a pretty good weapon, but for the most part you're going to be knifing people more often than anything else. Alright, well, that's an overview of the classes currently. As a new player, I take the suggestion to you to think of picking one of these classes that you think is best for you, which one, as your play style, you think you would be good with. If it's the engineer, the spy, or the scout, I suggest picking one other from the other 6 people to pick from. The soldier's pretty easy to figure out. The pyro is pretty easy to figure out. If I had to put it as a scale of best for new players to worst for new players, it would go this. The best thing for a new player to play is heavy. It's good for the team. It's hard to mess up as a heavy. All you gotta do is walk forward and shoot people. Next would be pyro, because it's hard to mess up with him as well. You go around spraying people with your fire, air blasting people away. I forgot to mention air blasting. Pyros can also not only burn people, but also extinguish his allies that are on fire with the air blast, and he can also push people away with the air blast. I actually forgot to mention. Did I forget to mention anything else? Let's see. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Anyway, he can also air blast people away. So it would go heavy, pyro, and then I would say soldier, medic, demo man, sniper, scout, spy, engineer, or no, engineer then spy. I consider spy the hardest thing for people to learn, then engineer, then scout, then sniper, then medic, then demo man, then soldier, then that, then that. So in my all opinion, I would suggest trying heavy out first. And once you've gotten used to playing the game, then you can pick one that you really enjoy and feel confident enough to learn, and then you can learn it and go from there. Or you can just dive head in first for whichever one. It's whatever you want to. I'm just making suggestions and tips. You don't have to listen to me. The next episode, we're going to talk about backpack crafting, catalog, trading, and we're going to start going through... Yeah, in the next episode, we're going to talk about backpack crafting, catalog, and trading. And then after that, we're going to make one video for each one of the classes. So, there you go. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next one.